Welcome back to Meaningful Conversations with Talk Cause. I'm your host, Melky, and in this episode, we are diving into a topic that's as important as the air we breathe, our environment. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, another lecture about saving trees? I promise you, this one's a bit different. In this episode, we are going to explore why, despite the warnings and melted ice caps, people seem not to care about the environment, or at least not enough to act. The environment? It's like that really nice neighbor who always invites you for tea, and you keep saying, "I'll come over soon," but never actually do, until one day their house is on fire and you realize, oh, we should have gone for tea. So, why don't people care? Well, let's start with Maslow. Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that humans are preoccupied with survival first. You know, food, water, safety. And when you're worried about how to pay rent, it's really hard to think about a polar bear losing its home. But here's the important point: the environment isn't some extra thing on the to do list, it is the list. No clean air, no fresh water, no crops. It's game over for Maslow's pyramid. Imagine building a pyramid on quicksand. That's humanity right now. So, how do we get from not caring to actually doing something? There's a model for it that's called 5 R's: refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. It's not just a mantra, it's a lifestyle makeover. Let me take you back to my childhood in a small town where life was simpler and lessons came from unlikely places. I used to have one neighbor, and his name was Mr. Luthra. So one day, Mr. Luthra was sitting by the stream and he was fishing out empty chips packets. And I was like, "Why bother, uncle?" I asked. "The stream will just get dirty again." He looked up and said, "Son, I can't stop the world from littering, but I can make this corner a little better." He practiced the 5 R's before they were even a thing. He would refuse to buy plastic wrapped goods, reduce waste by carrying an old jute bag everywhere, reuse glass bottles for his homemade pickle, repurpose tins into flower pots, and recycle paper to make kites for kids. His corner of the world stayed beautiful. And you know what? It made the rest of us try harder too. Let's face it, saving the environment feels overwhelming sometimes, right? You think, sure, I will recycle my soda can, but does it really matter when an iceberg the size of Japan is melting? It's like going to the gym once and expecting a six pack. But what's important is every small effort adds up. Imagine if we all flexed our environmental muscles together, we'd be the strongest green army in history. So, where do we start? Start small. Refuse that extra straw at your favorite cafe. Reduce your energy consumption. Turn off those lights when you leave the room. Reuse that bag instead of taking another plastic one. Repurpose an old shirt into a cleaning rag. And recycle not just cans and bottles, but ideas. Share what you know with others. Remember, the environment isn't asking us to be perfect, it's just asking us to show up. In this episode, we have uncovered the reasons behind our collective indifference and why it's so important to care, not just for the polar bears, but for ourselves, our future, and our present. The environment is where our story begins and ends. So here's my challenge for you, dear friends. What's one thing you can do this week or today, perhaps, to make your corner of the world a little better? Maybe it's refusing a plastic bag or planting a small herb garden on your windowsill. Whatever it is, remember Mr. Luthra and his stream. Thank you for tuning in to Meaningful Conversations with Talk Cause. Let's keep this conversation going because every small change begins with a meaningful thought. Until next time, remember the planet is our home and it deserves our care. Start with your corner because planet needs love.